Hello, welcome back to Crime Mystery Mayhem. Now, today's true story is going to be about Mary Bell, the 11-year-old girl who killed pets as well as other little children around her neighborhood. Now, before I continue with this story, I have to give a disclaimer because unfortunately, in this story, it contains some child neglect as well as some animal abuse. Now, with that being said, here's the story. Mary Bell was born in May 1957 in England. Her mother was Betty Bell and her father was Bill Bell. Her mother and father were very abusive. Her mother was a prostitute and she worked the streets from basically Monday through Sunday, meaning Mary never really got a chance to really spend time with her mom. And her dad was a well known alcoholic. He also stayed in and out of jail all the time. The police was always on his radar. There was always something criminally that he was into to keep him away from his family. Sources say that before Betty gave birth to Mary, Betty was like in these satanic cults where they used to like whip people and sleep with children and just do all sorts of horrendous acts towards children. When Mary was born in 1957, Betty automatically decided as soon as she came out, I don't want this baby. She told the nurses, the doctors, I do not want this baby. I'm not going to be able to take care of her. I have a bipolar disorder. Get her out of my sight before I kill her. The nurses and the doctors, they didn't take this too seriously. They just assumed, sometimes when mothers give birth to babies, they have like this postpartum depression or baby blues or some type of thing or situation like that, but that wasn't the case. But in our reality, Betty did have a bipolar disorder. Her bipolar disorder was so bad to the point that as Mary began to get older, I'll say about one or two, Mary, she just could not deal. I guess it was the frustration of trying to be a prostitute and be a mom. But regardless to the fact of whatever the situation was, Betty would try to pawn Mary off on strangers. She would try to pawn her off on other family members. And the family members just would simply tell her, no, it's not my baby. You burnt up those sheets. You laid down and you had that child. Now, take care of your baby. And Betty's just like, okay. So, but behind closed doors, no one would ever know the type of horrendous things that Mary would have to go through at the beginning, at the time she was 2 years old. Now, Betty was a prostitute, so she had lots of tricks who liked to mess with children. And because Betty was not in her right state of mind and she was not fit to be a parent, she will literally pass her child off to these tricks and allow them to do all type of evil and twisted things to this baby girl. It got so bad to the point where Mary started wetting the bed at night. And her mom didn't make it any better by taking her mattress outside so all the kids in the neighborhood could see the big yellow spot that Mary had left in the bed throughout the night. Sometimes Betty would even rub Mary's face into the urine stain as if she was some type of animal. But you don't even do that to an animal. So as time went on and Mary got older, Betty's just like, you know what? She's 6 years old. She's becoming more of a hassle. I have to feed her. I can't afford to. So Betty takes her down to the adoption agency, and they didn't offer her any help. And she spots this husband and this wife coming outside of the office, and the wife is crying. She's emotionally hysterical because She wants to adopt a husband, but this agency would not allow her and her husband to. So Betty just pushed Mary off to the side and was like, here you go. I came down here to get rid of her anyway. The lady's looking at Betty like, kind of like, are you serious? You're just going to give away your child like that? But at the same time, she's happy. So she just happily, willingly takes Mary home. She buys Mary food. She buys Mary clothes and toys and all these other cool things that a little girl could ever think of. And in just my opinion, I feel like this right here could have been the perfect home for Mary, because the things that were going on at this adopted lady's house, which she wasn't legally adopted with her, Betty just kind of just let her just go. So this woman did kind of illegally have her. But when Betty's sister found out, she came over one day. She was like, where's Mary? I haven't seen her in a couple of days. And Betty's like, oh, she at this other lady house. Her and her husband, they over there taking care of her. And her sister's like, bitch, if you don't go get that baby, I'm gonna call mama. So before she can get in contact with their mom, and the mom's like, you better go get my grandbaby, Betty goes and she gets in contact with the lady who has Mary, and she brings Mary back home. The lady and the husband, they're hysterical, and they're just basically putting it out there in the air like, okay, well, if you ever change your mind, we're here. She can always come back, but, let us send her clothes and everything that we bought for her. Let us send those items with you. So she did, and then, unfortunately, Mary goes back home to live with her mom and continues to be molested and be abused and mistreated. Every single day, Betty will feed Mary like these little tablets, and some of them were colors. Mary will be used to going to the store to buy candy. So her favorite candy would be like the little Smarties that come in the wrapper. Some kids call them pills. And Betty got smart to this. She's like, okay, so she think the Smarties, the Smarties look like pills or whatever. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give her sleepy medicine, and I'm going to tell her that they're Smarties. And, Mary would just be outside with her friends, and it doesn't matter where Mary would be out playing. It can be out in public, and lots of witnesses will say that they visually saw Betty giving Mary sleeping pills and calling them candy. So one day, Mary's just upstairs in her room, and her mom comes in, and she lifts the windows up, and she's just like, Mary, here, come look out the window. And she literally pushes her baby out of a 2-story window. So when the ambulance comes, they take the baby to the hospital. They ask, because, by this time, she's old enough to say what happened to her. She tells them, my mom pushed me out the window. They talk to Betty about this. And it's crazy because these people know that Betty isn't physically fit to take care of Mary, but they're still allowing her to be in her custody. So she lets her go. They allow the baby to go back home to Betty and whatnot, and then the abuse just continues. Every single day she's in her daughter's face. Bitch, I don't like you. Get away from me. I hate you. I wish you were never born. And what is a baby girl supposed to do in a situation like this? I'm pretty sure she's like mentally jacked up by this. Probably some type of depression or psychoticness brewing up inside her with all this torment against her from her mom, as well as the stuff that her mom is allowing other people to come in her home and do to this girl after she puts her to sleep. Like, that's just not fair. So as time goes on, little Mary, she starts to develop these urges to act out on animals. She would go in the woods or go in the playground and find these pigeons and just choke them. She would choke them until their necks cracked, or if her hands were too small to make the neck crack, she would beat them with rocks or just kill them. She would even find neighborhood stray cats and get scissors and try to cut their tails off. She'll find squirrels and chase them up the trees, find dogs and try to light them on fire, just whatever, just out here just acting out. But it's like I can't even talk about Mary's situation with a fire in my heart, because I know that if it wasn't for her mom and her dad not being there for her, and her mom doing all these evil, wicked things to her, I know she wouldn't have never done these things to these animals. So as Mary gets a little older, now she's like 9 years old, and she's, at school. And sources say that the kids at school were afraid of her. Like, she'll be playing with them one minute in the sandbox, then the next minute she'll be choking the heck out of them, shoving sand down their throat, putting her little baby fingers down their throat, trying to just choke them. And yeah, the teachers will literally be standing around, like, with their cigarettes, standing against the brick buildings, like, oh, well, them ain't my kids. Somebody will stop it. Literally, no parents or no adult supervision around to prevent Mary from doing this. They were, like, literally just shrug it off. So one day, Mary's best friend, Norma, they all went outside to play one day. And there in New England, all the kids from the age of 2 and up, they were able to go outside in the middle of the night till 12, 1 o'clock in the morning and just play. Because a lot of those children's mothers were prostitutes. Everywhere in the neighborhood, there was a prostitute. So kids were just out, just playing in abandoned buildings, playing in the street, dirty, clothes from, worn for a week, not eating, just out there, just about. Getting hurt, whatever it was. No adults were around to protect these children. So Mary and Norma, they were pretty much free to go and run the streets and just basically vandalize and do whatever it is that they wanted to do. So one day, Mary's like, Norma, look at that little boy over there. He's just over there just playing with this ball, and let's take him to the store and buy him some candy. So Norma's like, okay, I don't really want to spend my money on this kid. I can, spend this money on me some candy. But, Norma, she proceeds to go along with this plan. And they take the little boy to go buy him some candy. And then they're just like, okay. And by the way, this boy is like 4 years old. So, and at the time, Mary is 10 and Norma is 12. Now, sources even say that even though Norma is 2 years older than Mary, Norma had some type of mental condition where it made her further behind Mary. And Mary, she had street smarts, and she had been abused as a child, so she knew a lot more about adult life that no little girl who's 10 years old should know. And Norma didn't grow up in that type of household. Norma was more shielded, and her parents actually really did care about what she did or what happened to her. So Norma was pretty much naive because of her mental state, her mental disability. And Mary could basically ask her to jump off a bridge, and the sources say that they believe that Norma probably would have did it if Mary would have told her to do it the right way. But yeah, moving forward, whatever Mary would ask Norma to do, Norma would pretty much do it, because Norma loved Mary, and Mary was just that conniving. I'm sorry to say that this little girl was really like that, and it's unfortunate that she learned how to be like that at such an early age. But yeah, they lured this little boy to an abandoned building, and they went outside. They went inside. They're playing with, the broken wood and, the broken stones, and they're going up the broken stairs. And then Mary's just like, here, come here, kid. Here, look down there. And when the little boy stepped out on the ledge, Mary pushed the little boy outside. She pushed him down, and they were like up on top of this abandoned building. And they just left him there. So hours later, after this incident that happened, Mary and Norma, they're back in their neighborhood playing, probably eating candy, playing jacks on the curb or something like that, probably killing a cat or something. This little boy's walking in the neighborhood. He's got blood coming from his head, and like these adults see him and they're like, what's going on with you? And he tells them about what Mary and Norma did. The police comes to Mary's house, and Mary's dad is just like literally standing in the door like, y'all not gonna do nothing to my kid. Like, so literally no repercussion for this incident. But then, what do you expect? He's jailbait. He's out here in the streets getting arrested. He's an alcoholic and he's doing terrible things himself. So why would he allow you to take his criminal daughter away? So the police, they ended up, brushing this off, which I don't understand why. I feel like Mary and Norma should have, something should have happened. But nothing ended up happening. So a few days later, all the kids are just out and about. They're playing and everything. And then they see another little boy. He's just outside playing with his dog, chasing his dog around. And Mary walks up and she bends over and she rubs the dog. She's like, "Hey, what's your name?" And he says, "My name is Martin." And she says, "Martin, how old are you?" He says, "I'm 3 years old." And Martin is just cute, just playing with his dog. And so Mary looks over at Norma, and then she kind of gives her this evil stare, yeah, we about to jack him up. So Mary whispers over to Norma, "You remember that bottle of pills I got?" She was like, "Yeah, pull that out of your pocket." So Mary opens it and she checks it to see, how many pills are in the bottle. She put the caps back on it and puts it back in her pocket. She's like, "You want to go with us to the store? Go to the playground with us?" And the little boy's like, I don't know if I should leave in front of Mom's house." And she's like, "It's okay. We're old enough. We'll keep our eye on you." And so the little boy believes her, and he's out in the neighborhood playing with Mary and Norma, just not really thinking anything about it. And then, as I said before, in this neighborhood in England, there's a lot of abandoned buildings. There's more abandoned buildings than there is actual real homes for people to actually live in. So these kids, they will always be on these construction sites, always be playing in these very dangerous areas. And this is where Mary, she took the little boy Martin. Martin, he follows her to this construction site, and they're just out there playing and, carrying on. And then she takes him into this abandoned building, and they're playing, they're swinging off stuff or whatever. And then Martin goes to swing off something, and Mary pushes him down. She pushes him off of it, and he's like, "Oh, my neck hurt. My head hurts." And then Mary's like, "Look, I got this bottle of aspirin. I'll help, you take that pain away." And Mary just proceeds to give him all these aspirin. She gave him more than what he needed. And the little boy laid there and he OD'd. Mary and Norma left the little boy right there in that abandoned building to die by himself. So the day goes by, and it's 3 little boys. They're out playing, of course. They like to go to the abandoned building and collect the rocks or whatever souvenirs that they can find. They're little boys. They're just being, curious and having fun. And they see the little boy, and they recognize the little boy from their neighborhood. So they instantly run to a nearby construction site, and they see this guy out there, just drilling up the ground. And they like, help us. It's a little boy who needs our help. He's, you guys help. We think something is wrong. And the guy, he runs into the building, and he feels that Martin is cold. He's cold, and he's turning gray. And there's blood coming from his head and saliva dripping from his mouth. And so he carries the little boy out, and there's a crowd of people out there, because while the man is in there looking after Martin, the other little boys, they done went and told everyone else in their neighborhood about the little boy that they just found. And so Martin's mom's name is Judy. So Judy hears about all the commotion going on in her neighborhood, and she walks outside. And she hears that a little boy who fits her son's description just been found in an abandoned building. So she starts panicking. She's crying. She gets her jacket, and she runs outside, and she, makes her way through the crowd. And as soon as she gets through the crowd, this man is standing there with her son, laying dead in his arms. And she's just shaking. And she's like, "What's the matter? Is he okay?" And the man is just like, "No, ma'am, I'm sorry. Your son is dead." And she just falls out. And Mary and Norma is just standing there. Mary is laughing, and she's just like, "Oh my goodness, they found the dead body," and "Oh my goodness," she's just happy and ecstatic. And Norma is not really smiling. It's like, even though she was there when this happened, she's not really happy about the situation, because she's well aware of Mary being mischievous, but she's not okay with, the murders and all this turmoil that Mary is causing. But like I said, she's willing to do whatever Mary asks her to do. So moving forward, so this woman hasn't even got a chance to bury her baby yet, and Mary comes to the woman's house. The woman's son is in the casket, because back then in that time in England, they didn't take the caskets to like a mortuary. They will literally have the caskets in your home, in your living room, for people to come to your house and view the body. So Mary and Norma knew that little Martin's body was in his casket in his mom's living room. Mary actually came to this woman's house, knew that this woman's son had died because she's the one who killed her son. Knocks on her door and was like, "Hi, how are you doing today?" And Judy's just like, "Oh, that's sweet. They're coming over here to check on me." And then she's like, "I'm okay. I'm a little sad and everything, but I'm okay. How is everything going at home?" And then Mary just completely avoided what she said and was like, "We want to see Martin. We came to see Martin." And Judy's like, "Martin's dead. Martin's dead, so why would you say something like that?" And then Mary's like, "No, silly. We know he's dead. We want to see him in his casket." So then Judy's like, "If y'all don't get y'all little ass off my porch," and she slams the door in this little girl's face. Judy is furious. She's like, "Are you serious? Like, what type of stuff is this?" So then after that, after she slams the door in his face, Judy can literally hear Mary laughing loud, hysterically behind his door, like, "Ha ha 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 ha. But we want to see Martin. Let us in to see Martin." So, after that, Mary and Norma, they proceeded to go to this nursery. Because, the police, they investigated Martin's crime scene, and they didn't even think it was a murder or a homicide. They thought that Martin had just got a hold to some aspirins and just OD'd on his own, playing on his own. Curious, probably thought the bottle of pills was some candy or something. So they didn't think that it was a murder. That's not where their head were going with this. But sources say that during that time in between the investigation or Martin's death, Mary will literally be going around the neighborhood and be at school like, "Yeah, I killed Martin. I gave him the tablet and I choked him. I pushed him down. I stomped him." Whatever. And like other kids will be like they're already afraid of Mary because they're like, "Well, we better not say nothing to her. She might choke us." So, they already didn't really say too much about anything, but there was a lot of people overhearing Mary say some really crazy things, how she killed the dog and how she, killed the cat and strangled a pigeon and did this and did that and broke into here. So one day after school, Mary went over there to Norma's house and was like, "I want to play. Where's your sister, Norma?" And then Norma's like, "My sister's upstairs." And as soon as Mary goes upstairs to Norma's sister's bedroom, she just didn't say hi, no nothing. Just walked up to the little girl and just started choking her. Norma didn't even stop Mary. This is how I know that Norma was afraid of Mary. It took for Norma's dad to come in and was like, "Girl, what the hell are you doing to my daughter?" And then, he pried Mary's hands open, and sources say that Mary had this little girl's neck gripped so tight that it took a lot out of the dad to like, "I have to try to get this little girl's fingers from around my baby neck." So after that, he just kind of, maybe they was playing, or maybe I don't know what they was doing, but y'all don't play those type of dangerous games, because Mary just kind of like laughed it up. "I'm just playing, silly. I wasn't trying to choke her that hard." But little did this dad know that Mary was a real killer. So after they're sitting in the room, and Norma's sister like, "I'm leaving. I'm not gonna stay in the room with y'all. Y'all can have this area. I'm going outside anywhere other than in the same environment as Mary." So Mary's bored now. Mary's like, "Norma, I'm bored. Let's go to this nursery." The police are saying that We're not responsible for Martin's death. Let's go there. Let's vandalize it. Let's leave our mark. So Norma's like, Mary, I kind of don't want to go. And Mary like, you don't want to go. And then Norma's like, no, I want to go. I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. So they go. They break into the nursery, break the window, open the door, and they go up in there. They leave these notes, but it's like a bunch of chicken scratch. A lot of words you can barely understand, and a lot of misspelled stuff that it basically looks like a bunch of 2 and 3 year olds wrote this stuff, not a 10 and a 12-year-old. So when the police arrived at the nursery, because the maintenance man came in for his late night shift to come and clean the nursery, and he alerted the police once he noticed that the nursery was vandalized. So they got these notes, and they're like, one of the notes says that we killed Martin. We're responsible for his death. And the police are like, no, Martin died on his own accord. He died because he took some pills. So they're like, no, this is just a bunch of kids writing these letters, vandalizing the nursery, trying to take credit for something that they did, for something that they didn't do. So they kind of brushed it off, and then they didn't think anything else about it until, unfortunately, it was this little boy named John. He was just out minding his own business. He was 3 years old. Sources say he was a sweet little boy. He never disrupted anyone. He just pretty much just loved his mom and his dad and just loved family, loved to play with animals, loved to eat candy and stay up late. So now remember how I was saying that when you were like 2 and up, you can pretty much go outside and play at any shade of day. And your parents, they didn't care. They just didn't care about what time their kids came in or not. Kids didn't really have a curfew. So this little boy, he got up, he went downstairs, made him some milk and cookies, and this was a Saturday. So his parents and the rest of his siblings, they were still asleep in bed. He went downstairs, made himself some milk and cookies. He went outside to play. Mary and Norma, they were up around this time, probably out doing a bunch of stuff that they are not supposed to do. And they spot this little boy. Why did they see this little boy? I'm so like, why he couldn't just stay asleep just a little while longer, or stay asleep until his other sisters and brothers woke up? That way they could have went outside with him. He wouldn't have been out there by himself, and he wouldn't have ran across Mary. But unfortunately, he did. He ran across Mary, and Mary took him to, like I said, another abandoned part. And Mary's just like, here, stand on this stone brick. And the little boy gets up there, and Mary pushes him down. So the little boy, he falls on the ground, and he hits his head, and he's in a daze. And then Mary gets on top of him. She gets on top of him, and she immediately puts her thumbs into this little boy's neck and goes to choking him. Now, because her hands are so small, it's taking her multiple times to get it right. So she's not able to suffocate him the way she wants to. So she has Norma place her fingers on his nose until the point where her nails are basically embedded into this little boy's skin in his nose, while Mary holds his mouth and, pushes down on his neck so he can't breathe. But now Norma's like, what, I'm getting out of here. You're doing too much. I don't want any part of this. I'm leaving. Don't worry, I'm not going to tell on you, but I don't want to be any parts of this. But she's not expecting. She's thinking, well, maybe if I leave, Mary will leave too. But Mary did not leave. Mary stayed to carry out this violent, vicious act. So after Mary proceeds in killing this little baby boy, little 3-year-old bouncing baby boy, she pulls out a pair of rusty, messed up, broken scissors, and she stabs him. She stabs him in his arms. Now, he's dead now, but still, to add insult to injury, she stabs him in his arms and his legs, and she even takes the scissors. She pulls his pants down and his underwear, and she takes skin off of the little boy's growing area. Like, it's just really messed up that she knows to do these things. Like, her mom is out here being a prostitute, and meanwhile her daughter is out here killing kids, probably not understanding you know, why it is that she wants to do these terrible things. She's not even understanding why she's feeling the way she's feeling. Her mom is out here just selling it, dropping it like it's hot. Like that's the thing to do. So after that, you know, Mary, she buries the scissors under a stone and then she leaves. So once again, a man is, you know, out walking about and everything, and he spots the little boy's body. But by then, because the little boy he's been missing overnight, the mom and the dad, they're already looking for this baby boy, but they had no clue to where he was. So now a search party is already out here looking, but they're not looking in this area where this man had spotted him. They're out everywhere else, and Mary and Norma, they're like ahead of the crowd, skipping and laughing and joking. Everyone else is sad because they're trying to find this little boy, been trying to find him overnight. And Mary's just like, yay, let's skip this way, jolly, jolly, jolly. And everyone's trying to understand why, with all these deaths happening, why is Mary the first one ahead of the line laughing and joking? Yeah, there's a boy that's died, making songs and jokes and riddles about it. But then again, they didn't really give too much thought into it because they're like, okay, Mary's a 10-year-old girl. Maybe that's just one of her kid characteristics. But little did they know they had a little killer on their hands with little hands. So yeah, this local man ended up contacting the police, letting them know I found the little boy who was missing. And then so they bring the little boy's body in. And then, so by then the police, they're talking to all the kids in their neighborhood because they're like, wait a minute, this is the third little kid that something has happened to. It's got to be someone in this neighborhood who knows more than what they say. So they bring in all the neighborhood kids, and all the neighborhood kids, you know, well, no, he was a sweet little boy. I played with him on a Tuesday, but I didn't see him on a Thursday. Another little kid, I played with him on a Wednesday, but I didn't see him on that Saturday. So, but then interrogation ends up coming into Mary and Norma. So now when it's Mary and Norma's turn, they goes down to the police station, and Mary and Norma's story for all these 3 incidents all seem kind of sketchy. It seems like every incident that the police will ask Norma about, Norma will basically tell the truth and be like, yeah, we saw him this day, and Mary suggested that we go play with them, but nothing happened. So the police is like, so wait a minute, y'all seen these boys on all these days, but then it's like, it's mighty strange that all these 3 days that y'all seen these boys end up injured or dead. So they go and they talk to Mary, and Mary's like, I don't know what Norma talking about. You know, no, there was times when Norma asked me to go with her to go play with certain kids, and then I end up leaving Norma behind. So then now the police is letting Norma know, well, this is what's Mary's saying. So now their stories are not matching up, and now it seems like they're trying to, you know, go against each other. So the police let them go while they build their case, and they're sitting back like, Norma seems more credible, but Mary, she's always laughing and smiling every time we ask her about the deaths or, you know, whatever. She's kind of jokingly about it. She's more witty, and Norma's more quiet and kind of sad and kind of, you know, sad about the situation. But Norma, she just wasn't. She's like, no remorse. Oh, well, there's more kids out here. Why be sad about this one? So the next day, Norma and Mary, they goes to school. And now, the police never released any information about pill tablets or anything, any type of pill bottles being next to little Martin's body to the press or to, you know, the neighborhood. So no one knows about this. All they knew was that a little boy was found in an abandoned building. The only people who knew about the tablet bottle was the construction man who found them. You know, and maybe the little boys who went up in there and found the boy's dead body and told a construction worker and the police. So Mary goes to school, and, you know, their teacher is just like, it's so much chaos going on in their neighborhood. I want you guys to, you know, write a story about what makes you happy, or write about the chaos that goes in their neighborhood and how can we prevent this stuff from happening, maybe tearing down some of these abandoned buildings. You know, that way kids won't get hurt or and stuff like that. But instead of Mary writing a story about how to make things better, she's writing a story about little Martin who got found in an abandoned building. And at the bottom of her story, there's a picture of the construction worker walking up to a little bitty boy, and there's a bottle of pills. She drew a bottle of pills. Now, how would you know about this? So the teacher ended up giving this story to the police, and the police is like, wait a minute. How would she know about this? No one knows about this evidence. No one knows about this. So they bring Mary again, and they're questioning her, and then Mary just starts telling and lying on Norma. She's like, Norma did it, pointing everything at Norma. So then they bring Norma in, and Norma's crying, and she's sad, and she's like, no, I didn't. And now let me remind you, Mary didn't have the support of her mom, and her dad was always in and out of jail. So while Mary was going through all of these police investigations, at this time, Mary's father was in prison. So the only help she really had to be on her side was her mom, Betty. And if you remember, her mom, Betty, didn't want her in the first place. So every time that Betty would come down there to the police station for Mary, she's kind of nonchalant, like, Mary, what did you do? How could you do this? And Mary just sitting back looking at her like, are you serious? If it wasn't for you, you know, how you brought me up, all the evil, wicked stuff that you allowed to happen to me when I was a child, I wouldn't be in this situation. You know, so the police are trying to get Mary to admit to like different things, but she's not admitting. You know, she's basically putting everything in Norma's hands until they brought the letters up that they found in the nursery. And they compared Mary's story that she wrote at school to the letters that they found in the nursery, and they took some of Norma's handwriting and they compared that to the letters that they found in the nursery as well. And so that's another way that they were able to tell that it was Norma and Mary who vandalized this nursery. So when the police brought this to their attention, Mary had no other choice but to talk about the murders, but she, sorry to say, she ended up putting everything on Norma. And now so they go to arrest Norma. They're like, we're pinning this murder on you, we're pinning this incident on you. And Norma and her family, they're just falling apart. So Norma tells the police, she's like, no, I can tell you the truth. She was like, Mary committed these crimes. I can even show you where she hid the scissors at to stab, you know, little baby Martin at. So the police like, really? And she's like, yeah. So she took them exactly where the spot was at, where Mary hid those scissors. And the police went up there to Mary's school and they took her to jail. They took her to jail. Well, not to jail, but they brought her in for questioning. So they brought her in for questioning. And then she's just like, well, we were just playing. It was an accident. Norma made me do it. She made me do this. She made me do that. So now they're going through trial and everything. And then it's like, Betty, Mary's mom, she's just standing there. She's like the loudest person in the courtroom crying. Oh my goodness, Mary, I can't believe you did this. Look at the shame you bring it on the family's name. And Mary's just like, I cannot believe she's doing this. I cannot believe she's literally acting this. This woman has been abusing me my whole entire life. And she's not even woman enough to admit that she's the reason why my life turned out the way it did. She's the reason why I'm so confused. She's the reason why I'm so screwed up. Now, the reason why the judge end up deciding that Norma was telling the truth and not Mary, and Mary was the one who basically made Norma come along and made Norma participate in all these violent acts, because whenever Norma would come on to the court stand, Norma, she would just be honest. She would cry and she would show remorse to the victims. And she's like, I really didn't want to do it. And I tried to get Mary to stop, but she wouldn't stop. But then when it was time for Mary to go up there on the court stand, no one has ever taught her emotion. No one has ever taught her remorse. All she ever knew was hatred and violence and meanness and attitude. So when she would get up there, she'd be like, I did it. Yeah. That was fun. Like, so they end up doing a mental evaluation on Mary, and it ended up coming out that she was psychopathic, and she had all these other mental things that was going on and brewing inside of her that started from her childhood. So when they would bring the mom, Betty, in for questioning and ask her about Mary's childhood, she would just sit there kind of quiet, like, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure there are a few things that may have aided in Mary being the way that she is, but I can't say, I don't know for sure. And Mary's just like writing her mom letters like, Mom, could you please, this right here is supposed to be you locked up, not me. Please tell these people how you treated me when I was a child, so that way they can see that I'm not this monster. I didn't create this, you created this. And the mom is just like leaving her, just letting her hang out to dry, you know, selling all these different pictures that Mary had drew with violence and different poems and different stories that Mary was writing about how to kill pets and stuff like that. Betty, Mary's mom, was literally selling these pictures to the tabloids for money. While your daughter is literally in all this trouble, confused, don't know why she's this violent, you are selling her stories like you didn't care about her, but this is what you care about? Like, that is ridiculous. Like, I don't understand why she didn't get locked up. After that, after Mary told those court people and those police officers all the different molestations and the different tricks that her mom put off on her, why wasn't she arrested? Why wasn't she arrested? She's basically a pedophile. She pedophiled her own daughter. Even if she didn't do the act herself, she accepted money from other people to do these things to her baby. She smashed her baby's face in the piss. She threw her baby out of a window. She fed her baby all those different sleeping pills. And then not just that, sleeping pills and other medications given to a child when they're young eventually can lead to them being, you know, mentally screwed up and give them anger, give them sleep problems, give them all type of stuff. You know, especially if you start to give them that stuff at a very early age. And I'm guessing because Betty wanted to turn her tricks and she didn't want to be bothered with Mary like that. She probably gave Mary quite a bit of medication. And that probably is one of the reasons why she's so screwed up. But moving forward, so Mary will write her mom all these letters and try to get her to come up there. And Betty will come up there and take pictures with her or whatever, but only to have the pictures stolen to the tabloids to be able to get money for her. And she'll come up there and visit her baby and be like, listen, all you got to do is write a book. Just write a book. You get $50,000. Mom, I don't want the money. I want you to come clean. I want you to tell these people you out here free and living carelessly and get to go do whatever it is you want to do. Meanwhile, I'm in these boarding schools because by Mary being only 10 and 11 years old, she was too young to be sentenced for a murder. So they got her for manslaughter and they sent her to a boarding school who was originally stationed for young boys, you know, boys who were going through some, you know, young troubled boys. But Mary was the only girl going to this school, but then they end up transferring this school into something else. And they kind of made it kind of like a baby jail. But, you know, you can come and go as you please. But when Mary was there for like 4 years. And when she turned like 14, she ended up running away. She ended up running away for a little while. And then when they end up catching her, they end up bringing her back. And they end up giving her like 30 days lockdown or whatever. Because this was like a kind of like an open detention center. You know, like you could pretty much go and come and go as you please, and they left it all the responsibility on you to come back. So if you didn't show up, you'll be penalized. But so they end up sending her there. She didn't like it. She ended up running away again. So they end up sending her to another place when she was 16 years old. And this place was for more for adults, but this was also more like kind of like an open jailhouse for girls. The women, they get to leave and come and go as they please, go to work, do like hobbies, but they have to come back at a certain time. So Mary did this for a little while, and then by the time she was 20 years old, she was basically released. She was released. She only did like, what, 10 years for her crime. So when she was released, you know, she got out. She wanted to have her name changed so no one could be able to find her and you know, kill her or do something to her or her children if she decided to have children. But by the time she was 24, she gave birth to a little baby girl. And guess what? when the day she gave birth to this little baby girl, that was also the 16th anniversary of that little boy's Martin's death. She gave birth on this little boy's Martin's death. That's crazy. Like I don't know how to think about that. But yeah. With that being said, Mary's mom, she was terrible. Like, how dare you raise your child like that? Like, I understand that she had absolutely no one to give her child to. But, I mean, like, you could have tried harder. You could have looked for someone. And sources even say that Betty had another sibling. You know, Betty's mom, sister, or whatever. You know, she asked, you know, if she can get married for a little while, her and her husband. But sources also say that Betty wouldn't allow it. So it's like you didn't want to give your child up, but you didn't want to keep her either. So it was confusing. I guess because of Betty's bipolar disorder, she was confused on if she wanted Mary or not. Or one day she would treat her good, then the next day she would treat her like a dog in the streets. But yeah, it's basically Mary's word against her mother, because Mary's saying that her mom allowed all these terrible things to happen to her as a child, and Betty's denying it all. But at the end of the day, I don't believe Betty. I believe Mary, because why would this little girl lie and say that these things happened to her if they didn't? This is a great example of nurture versus nature. And in this situation, this is more of a nurture ordeal, because learning starts from home. And I truly believe that Mary's mom taught her how to do every last thing that Mary did. Even if she didn't verbally say it or physically teach her this on her own, she's the reason for why Mary turned out the way she did. And I don't give a shit. So, with that being said, that's the end of my story today. Tune in again next Thursday for more stories about crime, mystery, and mayhem. Like and subscribe, and have a blessed